Hi, I'm Kaylee Evans. Welcome to my channel, Social Care Connections. I hope you enjoy the video.
I think the diamond model is a really great way of kind of getting your head around social pedagogy. And I think we've talked a lot about relationships and well-being is really important. So understanding what well-being means to people and helping them find a sense of well-being. You know, as human beings, we all want to be, feel well and feel happy. But I think it's the holistic learning that's really important. And I think this is the big difference in social work to social pedagogy, is that holistic learning is really important. So it's about supporting people to learn the things that they need so that they don't need social workers anymore. And we're never going to fix everything for everybody. We can't make life perfect for people. But what we can do is that we can help them kind of get the skills so that they can manage the ups and downs of life. And we talk about life space in social pedagogy. And that is about using every opportunity in a person's life to help them learn the things they need to be a functioning human being. And I'm sure Ali will have some more points about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for me, the learning is almost the key to the empowerment, and I think that's something that we've missed to some degree in social work, as it's the statutory roles have kind of taken over to some degree. And it's quite interesting. I've recently been talking to some social workers who are working as part of the pandemic and capturing some of the learning that's happened as a result of having to change practice really quickly and respond in a much more human way to people's lives, because there is no script in a sense. And one social worker said it's interesting because we're seeing so much more resilience in individuals. They're identifying their own solutions and feeling a much bigger part of that, of how to respond to something. They're not looking to us for that expertise because we haven't got that expertise. We're new to this as they are. So actually tapping into learning and developing is making them feel truly empowered in a way that we could never fix that problem for somebody. So, and I suppose the other thing is that holistic learning leads to people empowering themselves. We don't empower people, they empower themselves.
Yeah, I think that's made a lot of sense to me. Thank you. So we've got the 3 Ps now. I just wondered if Lowis, you could just explain this.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is a key theory or a key framework. So we talk a lot about relationships, and we've said, you know, relationships are so important, but the 3 Ps are a really good framework to get us to think about how do we develop these professional relationships. So it's a good framework for you to think about, right, the professional, the personal and the private. And in social pedagogy we talk about how you cannot be professional if you cannot engage the personal. So the professional is that you have to acknowledge the roles. So, you know, when you work with people, when I was a social worker, I only ever met those young people because I was their leaving care social worker. I wouldn't have come across them in any other way. And also being a professional, that brings a set of knowledge and a set of skills that you have. And so it's about recognizing that and understanding that. But then the second and most important part is the personal. So you're going to build up those relationships, you're going to bring and use parts of you and your personality and parts of who you are as a person to engage with people. And we talk about reciprocity. So when you build up relationships, what you do is you share a bit of yourself, and then that person will respond and respond back to you. And relationships are this layering and building up of sharing information about yourself. Now, the private aspect is really important because there are lots of things that you're never going to share, and that is absolutely fine. And so it's thinking about, is this useful? So if I'm building up this relationship with this young person that I'm working with, is it really useful for them to know this certain part about my private life? And so you have to make that professional judgment about whether it is or not. And what I would say is that you've got to ask yourself the question, is this helpful? Why am I sharing this bit of information? And if it's because you want the young person to like you, then you really shouldn't be sharing it. However, if it's going to be helpful to build up that relationship, then you share that bit of your private life, and then that becomes part of the personal. And what happens is, over time, as you get to know people and you build up relationships, is that the boundaries between the 3 Ps will shift, and the context. So there'll be some young people or some adults that you work with that you never share very much with, because that would be unsafe for them and it'd be unsafe for you. And so it's very much about context, but it gives us a really good reflective framework to think about how you use parts of yourself. And I suppose the other key thing to say about it is that this isn't about information. So it's not about sharing addresses and dates of birth. The 3 Ps, the personal aspect, is about how you respond to people. You don't necessarily have to tell them lots of information about yourself, but it's about how you're empathic and compassionate in your communication with people. Ali, do you want to add a bit more?
Yeah, I guess it's just that bit about it's about a genuine relationship, and so social pedagogy insists that you cannot be professional unless you are willing to have that personal. So I was doing some work with a group of people thinking about this in social care, and getting them to give examples of what was professional and what was personal and why it was important. So working with a young person who just, as part of that building the relationship, says, "Oh, where do you live?" And people, and so what's the answer to that if you're thinking about the 3 Ps? Well, you know that you're going to disengage instantly with someone, say, "That's none of your business and it's nothing to do with what we're doing." So maybe thinking then the person was saying, so I might say the professional will be, "Well, yeah, I live in Trafford." The personal is, "I live in Urmston." So you wouldn't give the "I live in Urmston," but you would give "I live in Trafford," because that is important to that individual to know that you are another human being who has a house, and we're going to share that information. It's part of something that we all do in relationships. I suppose the other thing is that we don't need a policy to tell us how to run relationships in social work. That you're talking about people who professionally will know when something is private, can tell when it's personal and it's purposeful in that relationship. And if we only ever go down the policy route, then you'll take away that genuine connection. One of the ways that this is used a lot in adult social care is around one-page profiles, which really are working on the same kind of premise, that it's about sharing part of that personal, so that if you're working with an individual, you know all this intimate detail about people's lives, but it's important that you're able to share something of yourselves as well.
Want to add anything, or do you think it's been covered?
I was thinking about a good example that Siobhan McLean did for us the other day, and she was talking about an example of somebody who was going to, I think it was parenting group meetings, and she met with 3 people who sort of demonstrated the 3 Ps quite beautifully. So she met with someone who just gave some very brief personal information about themselves, that along the lines of, I've got children. And then the next person, in terms of professional, said, "Oh my God, teenagers, I've got a couple of them. They're a bit of a handful, aren't they?" And then the third person kind of gave the example of, "Yeah, I've got these teenagers and they do this and my life's a mess and my husband's that." And I just thought that was a really great example of within ourselves and our own personal containment, that people want us to be professional, to give enough of ourselves that builds that relationship, but not too much that we're all over people, or not too much that we're standing back and not building those relationships with people. So I thought that was a quite good example that that Siobhan came up with.
Yeah, I heard that example, and I think that's related to how I've done things in practice a bit. And I think as you progress, you get a bit more comfortable with knowing the boundaries of what's sometimes useful to say and not say. And I think it depends on the person, and I think you have to take it person by person and reflect on what would be relevant for that individual. But I think it's a skill you develop over time, definitely.
Just say one more thing, because you brought it up there, Kaylee. It depends. So it depends is absolutely central to social pedagogy. So everything that we do will depend on the situation, the person, the context. And that again is taking us away from being process-led in what we do. And we have to have the skills to be able to use judgment, use intuition, use compassion, to be able to know, in this situation, what is the response? How am I going to relate to you? And we need that we have flexibility to be able to do different things in different situations. And there's a real thing about having some confidence there to exercise. It depends, but it's often seen in social work as being a quite a flimsy sort of fluffy concept. It depends. Well, can't you give us a straight answer? There's some real strength in practitioners being able to confidently say, it depends, I don't know, because that means that you really are thinking about this in that individual's context.
So I've just got the heads, hearts and hands next as the final one I thought we'd go through. So maybe Ali, do you want to start this time?
Yeah, okay, so head, heart and hands is absolutely central to social pedagogy. Quite self-explanatory maybe, that the head represents the kind of the knowledge and the purpose of our involvement. So that might be our knowledge around legislation, it might be around the research that's guiding us, it might be about knowledge of resources in the community. But as practitioners, there is a kind of knowledge base that's guiding our practice, and it's important we keep that up to date. The heart is actually that when we work with people, we have this emotional connectedness to our heart. So this kind of relates to Haltung, it relates to sharing the personal and being able to connect with people at that emotional level. The hand then represents the practical application, if you like. So depending, and this it depends phrase comes again, depending on the knowledge, depending on the relationship, allows us to think, in this situation, how will this be given some practical application? How will I use my hands to guide what happens? So it's not necessarily about using your actual hands, but it's a kind of it's a metaphor for that practical application. And in social work, where the real worry is that often, because of us being quite process-led in our work, that we've squeezed out a lot of the heart in practice, or it's the first thing to go when people are busy, when people are stressed, when we're faced with a pandemic, that there's a risk that the heart can go. And actually what it is it's about finding space for that heart to come back to practice. And that's at an individual level, it's how can I do this more, where can I find those spaces, but also at an organisational level, what can the organisation do to allow people to be more human in their work and see this and validate it as something which is absolutely vital to practice. Lois?
Sorry, yes, part of the human coming in, the personal there, my cat trying to join the webinar, look. What I would say about head, heart, hands is that I think this is a really good tool to use in practice with people as well. So if you've got somebody that is facing quite a difficult situation and you're supporting them with that, then you can use this to kind of talk to them about how they might see this. So you can talk to them about the head. So what do they know about the situation that they're facing? The heart is how does that feel? How are they feeling? And the hands can be right, what are we practically going to do? So I remember when, I'd worked with a lot of young people that would have looked after children reviews and they would find them incredibly stressful. So it'd be about talking to them about, right, I understand that these are stressful. I understand that, but these are the reasons why it's good for you to participate in these reviews. But you'd have some discussion then around how it felt. So, I can see that you get very wound up and you might stomp out and leave the meeting. So the hands would be then, right, practically, how are we going to deal with this? Do we need a signal? So if you're starting to feel that this is too much and you're getting stressed, give me a bit of a nod or a signal, and then I will say, right, we're calling a halt to the meeting for a minute, and we'll go and kind of get a brew and cool down, or give ourselves 5-10 minutes. So I think head, heart, hands is a really good practical tool that you can use with people, but also in your own professional practice as well. A really good reflective tool to think about, right, what do I know about this? What do I feel about this? What am I going to do? What are the practical things that I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think the reflection side is very relevant because I know a lot of the time it can be so busy in social work, and it's good to just take a minute to reflect on what you have done. And something that me and Katy did was we ran some reflective sessions, and people fed back that they really enjoyed thinking about some of the positive outcomes they've had for people, because sometimes it's like you do something and you feel really proud for a minute and then you move on to the next thing and you don't really get time to think about the significance of that. And people really came alive in that session, didn't they, Katy? What did you think about that?
One of those really defining moments in practice, wasn't it? Because a lot of our colleagues were saying that it brought them back to the heart of social work, and they felt very inspired by the social work that they were doing. And colleagues went away and took some of the learning and incorporated it into a new model of practice. So it's not just a social pedagogy, but they were looking at restorative practice, strengths-based practice as well. But that was because they were ignited. They'd had the chance to actually remember in social work and what they were wanting to do with their careers, with the people that they were working with. And it was kind of giving them the permission to go, I'm really pleased I'm in this role. I absolutely love it. And I'm reminding myself why I'm doing this role.
So I thought we'll use the theories and the models and things to make it the connections. But then I brought this on as well because I wanted to show that it's there are lots of things going on. It's people get really into this whole thing, don't they? Katy, you've attended some of these events as well. Well, you all have, I think.
So we were in Aberdeen here. We were at Camp Hill, and it was I think it was a two-day event. And we got together with colleagues from around the world, and from the very creative side of it, in the bottom of this picture, there's a candle workshop, and the people that looked after the houses where the residents were also came with skills, and they were paid to be there. They were learning skills, and they see it very much as part of their development to be another resident in the house, supporting adults with a learning disability, that there's a vocation for adults to have, and they're contributing massively to the community. And part of that couple of days is absolutely magical, and there's so much more to add to this. I want Ali and Lowis to talk about it.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. This is one of the events that happened out of many, and as Katy says, it's a really good opportunity to be with people who are very like-minded, but it offers these kind of creative spaces as well. I think what I've found most powerful about connecting with people in these kind of events, and also we've done a lot of work in Europe, and I'll let Lois tell you about the MOOC in a minute, because I think if you're interested, that might be something you could look at. But basically, the connections in the work that we've done with our European projects has been amazing, really, because their mindset, their Haltung, is so different. They have a very different starting point and are very much more comfortable with the ideas around social pedagogy, because it's something that is taught on many courses, that people, instead of doing a social work degree, would do a social pedagogy degree, for example. So if you talk to people in Germany or Denmark, they would know what a social pedagogue was straight away and would be able to connect with that. So seeing practice that has been developed from that mindset rather than one of a statutory kind of mindset is really fascinating, and it's definitely helped me with my learning. Lois, what do you think?
I agree, and I think there's some real power in kind of connecting and realising that you're not the only one who thinks this way or wants to work in this way, and there is so what you can see pictures of here is the Social Pedagogue Development Network, and these are free conferences, and it is about getting people together and sharing good practice and sharing ideas and talking about what's going on. And Ali says, if you're interested, then please have a look. You can look at FEMPRA's website, and they're in this current COVID crisis, they're looking at setting up some online events around this SPDN, so trying to get people together. You've also got the Social Pedagogue Professional Association that is running a series of webinars, again getting people together to look at how social pedagogy can inform practice at this current point. And Ali mentions the MOOC. So this is a massive open online course, which is Social Pedagogy across Europe. And we worked with 7 European partners looking at how social pedagogy is used across Europe, because it's slightly different in different countries. So this is a free online course. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about social pedagogy, then, you know, type in Social Pedagogy across Europe MOOC, and it's a free course that you can you know, register on, and there's just a series of videos that you can watch in your own time, but it gives you a little bit more information.
I've done a definitive definition of what social pedagogy or however you say it better is, but I think it's because there isn't really one, is there? Or what do you think, Ali and Lowis, about that?
Absolutely, I'm really pleased that, you know, that you're not trying to define it, because there's something, there's the quote that says, Lowis will tell you who it's from, because it's the one that talks about it's not social pedagogical, because
Himalayan, yes.
Yeah, Himalayan. Do you know it? Can you think?
Yeah, so it's something isn't social pedagogical just because you say it is, but it's because of the actions that you take. So Paul Stevens also, oh no, it's Himalayan again, talks about how social pedagogy is a lens. So it's like a lens that you can't remove, and it's about how you see the world around you. So social pedagogy is absolutely not a method. So it's not like strengths-based, which is a particular way of working. This is much more about a philosophy and ethical orientation to your practice. It's something that you just do as a human being. And like Ali says, that quote is really key. It's like Himalayan says, you know, it's not just because you say it's creative means it's creative. It actually has to be creative. So yeah, so it depends. There isn't a definition to social pedagogy. It depends on you and your worldview and how, and the people that you're working with. But there is some guiding principles. So what we've talked about today are some of the guiding principles that help us think about how we do the work that we do.
Lowis, I'm really interested to know about the MA in Social Pedagogy program, and I think there might be like some webinar or an introduction to it. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. So we run an MA in Social Pedagogy Leadership. So this is about looking at supporting people to use social pedagogy in their leadership. So you don't necessarily need to be a manager or a team leader. So it's looking at how we are leaders in our everyday, but also if you are a team leader or a manager of an organisation, how you can embed social pedagogy into your organisation so that you can support cultures of care and positive relationship-based practice. So this is an online course. It's going to be online from September because of the current crisis, but I'm running a taster session on I'm just getting my diary, on the 12th of May at 12 o'clock. So you can email me. That will give you, it's going to be about an hour and a half, and it's just some information about the course and what you can expect. And hopefully I might get some students in as well to tell people what their experiences have been. And if people can email me, I will book them a place on it. And so my email address is lcharfe, so CHARFE @uclan.ac.uk. And that starts at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock on the 12th of May. Thank you.